a Pete Primeau fan.
Thank you for having me.
Your fans are like,
what an honor to be here, Pete. You're a legend. You're a rock star.
I'm a legend in my own mind, said my wife.
If I can do it, anybody can do it.
I'm Mr. Selling from the Heart. What's this guy, Larry Levine, going to teach me about selling from the heart?
You are one of the most generous and authentic people around. And I think that's why you and your show are so attractive to people.
Welcome to the Pete Primeau Show. It is episode 216, and we are here with Michael Magnuson, the founder and the owner, CEO of GoodBed. First, let's pay the bills, and we will get to our fireside chat. If you haven't read my book, Sell a Million, what are you waiting for? 101 tips, ideas, techniques, strategies to sell another $1 million or more this year. It's on Amazon. Grab it. I think it's super ridiculously cheap, like $14.99. Just absolutely dumb. And if you haven't gotten this book yet, this is my brand new release, Miles and Miles of Retail Selling Greatness by Pete Primeau. And the best part is you get me plus 10 of my friends. And my friends are pretty amazing. You have Jeff Giannakovo, Brent Batterman, Chris Dehaney, Steve Carnes, Randy Thompson, the adjustable bed guru. You've got Mark Klingenberg, the only person I know that's ever sold over 1,000 smart beds at retail, and the amazing Scott Vaughn. So grab that book. It's ridiculous. $19.99. And it's free. If you're a sales manager and you want 3 years worth of sales meetings, this is it right here. Done for you for $20. Ridiculous. Anyway, thanks for being here. We will get started. Oh yeah. Chris Stone, the best producer in the world, reminded me that I do need to finish paying the bills. And thank you, Steve, and thank you, Greg, for sponsoring the Pete Primeau Show. If you want to build, market, and sell, the Mattress Industry Network group is the place to be. And if you are in retail or wholesale, we want you here. It's for the benefit of the entire industry. If you want to learn how to build, market, sell, succeed in the mattress industry, come on in. It's free, 100% free. I believe over 2,400 members right now. So join the group and say hi. I try to get in there a couple times a week. Without a further ado, welcome, Mike. It's great to see you. And I cannot believe it's been 3 years since you've been on my show.
I can't believe it either, but it's great to see you as well. Thanks for having me back.
So it's my absolute pleasure, and shame on me for not having you back sooner. I remember a young guy about 17 years ago wandering into Sutherland's temporary High Point showroom. And it was you, and you had this idea about this thing called GoodBed. And I remember introducing you to Brian Smith. And I kept thinking about what you had said. And I'm like, this is really something that we need in our industry. And we're really lucky that this guy, he's young, he's smart. And here we are all these years later. And, you know, one of the things that I think is very interesting is you have been able to kind of see what's going on with the consumer and give us a peek into their behavior in ways that other companies can't because of essentially what you do. So I'm going to ask you the question for the benefit of the entire audience so you can kind of lay it out. Who is GoodBed and what do you do, Michael?
Sure. Well, first I have to, just since you mentioned that, I had forgotten that incident back in High Point a long time ago, but I have to give credit to you because, I walked into High Point Market and I remember doing the same thing in Vegas for the very first time, not knowing a soul in the industry. And I was just trying to explain what it was that I was envisioning and what had already created and what I was envisioning creating from there, and what I thought the need was and how I thought it could be helpful. And I remember just, it wasn't an industry that had done much in the digital realm at that point, and I got a lot of blank stares. and you were one of the few who quickly just understood, got it, and I remember that. Like that left a mark on me. I was like, okay, here's somebody who understands, at least in a similar way to the way I think of it, where the puck is going. And
and I think that's a great way to explain it, Mike. It's where the puck's going. Are we going to go there? Or are we going to go where it already's been?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was brilliant then, and I still think it's great. And the future greatness is really up to us as an industry to fully embrace putting our customers first. I think that's a lot of what sometimes is lacking in certain companies, and understanding the customer and understanding that, without our customers, we're nothing. And without our retailers, we're nothing. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think what's really made what you're doing special is you're concerned about the end consumer, you're concerned about the dealers, and you're concerned about the manufacturers. You're like concerned about everybody and want everybody to benefit. So thank you for everything you do.
Well, it's my pleasure, but that's exactly right. And it's not just lip service. I think when we spoke back 17 years ago, that would have been exactly what I would have said, is that I see an opportunity to do two things at the same time. And one thing, of course, was to provide information to the consumer that helps them make a better decision with something that is important, expensive, complicated, and just overall, even sometimes frustrating. And I thought we could help them make a better decision, make this easier by providing better information. But at the same time, I think I thought at that time, and I still to this day 100% believe that there is an opportunity to help companies who make and sell good products get more credit for what they're doing. And that is the way that we ultimately, everything that we do at GoodBed is about creating that win-win. So It has been from day one.
And the fascinating thing for me, Mike, is it's more important today than it's ever been with inflation, with everything that's gone on in the past. We had the COVID, then we had people becoming more concerned about, well, I'm not traveling anymore and I'm not in all these different hotel rooms and I'm stuck here with me and my mattress in my house here for a month or two. And this mattress really isn't that great. And I can't escape from it because I'm locked down. Right.
Yeah.
And so, there's all kinds of studies out there that health and wellness have been prioritized by the consumer and might have kind of leapfrogged us 10 to 20 years in the future. But here we are, and, we had some supply issues and we had some inflation. I think inflation's starting to at least get ready to go down if it's not already going down. But the most important thing is this, consumers today versus when we spoke 17 years ago, Mike. They're spending more and more money on mattresses. And I should say they're investing more in themselves and in getting and being able to wake up happy and pain-free than ever before. And because of that, I believe that as you elevate the pricing and you elevate the performance of anything, but in particular mattresses, which directly affect your health and your well-being, that sales cycle is going to be a little bit longer, and it's going to require more information to correctly facilitate and identify needs, and then to actually get the consumer to pull the trigger on the right thing for them. And there's more varieties, right? I mean, there was barely any latex being sold 17 years ago. Latex is running away with it. Smart beds are running away with it. Now we've got this new configuration called a split head, because I don't want to use a different term, which will get me a letter from somebody and a lawsuit, but we call them split heads now. It's a new configuration, a new size. It really isn't all that new. Thanks to Sleep Number, they have popularized it. But there's new things happening. There's a resurgence in double-sided. There's a lot of different things going on. The technology for actively cooling ticks, it's not just PCM anymore. There's more and more technology coming. It seems like almost every day. And so in a way, it's getting a little bit more complicated, and it's the retailer has the ability to make more gross dollars than ever before and more net profit dollars than ever before. But I think the consumer is going to need more information than they've ever needed before for them to be happy with the decision that they've just made.
Yeah. Well, that I love the way you put that. It makes me feel like the way I might have described that is more glass half empty than the way you just put it. But you put it in a very positive light. I think the not to be the one who is negative, but the other side of that is that the consumer is facing a lot of just confusing information. There's so many more choices, but also so many of these choices to the consumer sound the same, and that is a problem. And especially when the price points are nowhere near the same. And I do think that you're right about a segment of consumers having moved upstream and having sort of recognized the importance of this product and the importance of investing in a good night's sleep. And we see that those people indeed are spending more than they ever have before. But at the same time, there's this other segment of the market that seems like they've almost given up, where they just go, everything sounds the same. Every company, every product makes the same exact claims, from $300 to $30,000. They're all saying, we're cooling, we're pressure relieving, we're supportive, we're comfortable, we're durable. They're all saying this. So why would I ever spend, 100 times as much on a product that I can get for $300? And so you have a bunch of people who are down at that end of the market. And unfortunately, that group is bigger than ever as well. And so it is a time where the retailers have a lot of opportunity, but they also have some challenges and threats that they're facing, and we're very mindful of those things in everything we're doing to try to make sure that again, not only are we doing it from the standpoint of helping the retailers and making sure that they are, we're supporting them, but also from the standpoint of making sure that the consumer is making a good decision, so that they're not just buying something because it's cheap, but that they're buying something that's really the right product and the best product for them. Or maybe even flipping it around, they're not just buying something because it says it's good, but let's buy something that actually is going to be good.
So tell us a little bit more about GoodBed and what you do. We kind of understand the why, what you do, and for a store owner or a manufacturer who hasn't participated, you know, what exactly do you do for them? And it's really what you do for the consumer that benefits the consumer and will benefit them as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can take you on just the brief history,
Sure.
but you know, because you framed this all with that conversation we had 17 years ago. At which point in time, I would have told you that we're a consumer review platform. We were going to the first thing we started out to do was bring consumers reviews from other consumers in this category, and we quickly became the largest independent platform for reviews. We still are the largest independent mattress review platform. And so that was the kind of first order of business, where I felt that we could help companies get credit for the good things that they're doing while also helping consumers get better information. But that we quickly realized that reviews, even when you do them the way we did them, where we make sure to get a lot of information about the sleeper so that we can frame each review in proper context for other readers of that review. Like, this is a person who's a side sleeper. This is a person who weighs, 250 to 300 pounds or what have you. They prefer softer mattresses. We can frame their review in proper context, unlike other reviews on the internet. But even with that, I realized consumer reviews are a small piece of this equation for how a person how I would advise my mother, for example, to make an educated purchase in this category. So we're going to have to go beyond this. And that's when we developed a vast database of products and stores that we could help, through which we could help people discover products that would meet their needs, both online as well as in their local area. And we created search tools for doing that discovery. We layered onto that from there editorial content. And so maybe 7 or so years ago, we started providing editorial coverage of as many products as we can, in terms of helping consumers understand them in standardized, with standardized metrics that kind of go across brands, both and breaking it down for people in a way that they can understand, hey, these are characteristics of a mattress that are purely preference based. These are ones here that could be better or worse, but may not actually be important for you. Motion isolation is really important for some people, but if you sleep by yourself, it may not be important at all. And then here are the things that are a fit based. They're going to be better or worse, but it's not going to be the same for you as it is for somebody else. And so we kind of break it down for people in those ways. And so that was kind of the third leg of the stool. And then what we're doing today is really just using that platform. We have a very product-centric platform that ultimately is helping, that starts, I guess, with helping people identify products that could be good for them. And the reason we built it in a product-centric way is because we, in our experience, find that our readers, when they come to us, that's their first question, is about what to get. But then what we realize is that we can provide a very product-centric experience where we're meeting them right there where they are. But in the process of doing that, we can show them opportunities to try and buy that product at local stores in their area. So that's another big piece of what we do.
So that is really neat and amazing, but not surprising, that you thought, okay, I'm just going to do this review platform and we're done. But then what the consumer needed kind of drove you to be a lot more than you originally thought you were going to be.
That's right.
We got a couple comments and I wanted to read them. Andrew Burt, happy Friday, gentlemen. Hope you are both doing well. We are doing fine. Thanks for being here. And Jeff Janakovo, great to see you on the show, Mike.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
Any questions, guys? Anybody that's got any questions? We actually are live. So if you have a question, we will answer it for you. So we've got this this database of products and stores. We got the search tools. We got the editorial comments. helping the customers kind of prioritize some of the feature and benefit stuff that goes on. And suitability was a word that I heard you say. And I think that's really incredibly huge, because when we're selling at retail in a good store with a good selection, it really comes down to how does a customer prioritize various attributes of a bed, and it's different for everybody.
It is.
It's based on their experience. It's based on their challenges. If they have certain health problems, for instance, if they have a hard time breathing and they don't get an adjustable bed, they are really just absolutely messing up royally, because it doesn't matter what mattress they get. They're going to have an adjustable bed to have a good experience with it, because the only way you're going to breathe easier is to be at a 45-degree angle or higher, to help alleviate that condition, whether it's COPD or something else. So, what is the biggest surprise to you in these 17 years, Mike, that you thought, I'm really shocked that this one particular thing is important to customers, or this one particular thing is not important to customers, as you're seeing their behavior actually change over time?
Yeah. Well, I guess if I think back at the arc of these 17 years, a lot of when I wrote up essentially a business plan. I mean, I was a business guy. In fact, I was a Wall Street investor guy before this. So you can imagine, of course, I wrote a business plan for this before I started it. And most of the things that I sort of anticipated in that plan came true. But one thing that I never anticipated, and I was extremely surprised by, is the idea that so many consumers buy a mattress online now. That was not something that I saw coming, even when the first kind of guys came around. I mean, the Casper guys came around and they came and connected with me before they even launched their product. And I thought it was interesting. They were very sharp guys, but I didn't see it being the kind of market changing thing that it ultimately did become. And so that was a huge thing that I would say caught me by surprise. And,
it caught
here
me
we are.
It caught me by surprise. I was working for a company. We bought a Casper, we tore it down. We sent it out for a scientific analysis, and we couldn't figure out how the heck they built the bed. It's a very simplistic build, but the core of the bed, Mike, when you do testing on a bed, you divide it into 9 sections. Okay. And in 9 sections, we had 3 different ILDs of bed and different densities as well, which sometimes correspond to ILD. Sometimes they don't correspond to ILD.
This was in the original Casper that they were selling in 2014. Wow.
Yes. It was unbelievable. And so we said, man, if these guys are using this bad, and it was, we considered, 1.8 the standard density that you would want. I mean, this thing was like 1.3 in one section, 1.4 in another section, I think 1.35 in another. It was just weird. And we completely missed it. Like, we said, let's not even look at this anymore. They're never going to get out of their own way. This is going to be an experiment gone bad, and forget about it. Here we are. We're all building some pretty relevant and really good quality mattresses that can be roll packed now. And the machinery and the technology for roll packing has changed significantly in these past 11 years, right? And so, you can roll pack a thicker, better quality bed than ever. But here's Jeff Janakovo. This will be good. This will be good, Mike. Now that we are 10 plus years into the online mattress revolution with air quotes on it, I can see Jeff just saying this right now.
He's actually referring back to, I think, the title of one of my presentations. So kudos.
Of course he is, which has really become an evolution. What are your biggest takeaways from the last 10 plus years? And what do you feel lies ahead that might surprise someone? Wow, that's a great question. Ooh.
Yeah, great question. I mean, the biggest takeaways, I think, from how this has played out up until now is I mean, other than the original revolution, like which is not something I anticipated at all and was highly disruptive. But once these brands kind of came up and established themselves, I think from there, everything has played out exactly as you would expect. I mean, they came out with one model. They claimed it was the only model you'd ever need. But of course, you knew that they would never be able to grow their business in a way that met their growth objectives by keeping only one model. Because we all know, who are in the industry, that mattress fit is highly personal, and there definitely is no one model that's going to work for everybody. So we all knew, like, if you actually sat down and thought about it, you knew there's no way these guys are going to have one model forever. We also knew that their next models they were going to add were going to be up market. Why would they ever want to go down from where they started? They sort of anchored themselves, at a place where they thought they could enter the market, where it was attractive, under $1,000. But once they got that toehold, it was about climbing up from there, not about going back further down. So those brands, we knew that they would go up market. We also knew they would eventually reach a plateau beyond which they could no longer meet those growth objectives without a physical store presence. So eventually, all the stuff they were saying about how stores rip you off and you should never go to stores and they're the worst, we knew they'd have to go back on that as well. Like, it just would eventually, all this was going to play out exactly as it has. So in many ways, I feel like we're just now at the point where we knew we would be. And what we've ended up with is, in a sense, like a wider portfolio of strong brands. Like we have more nationally advertised mattress brands than we had before, which I think is in a sense, a positive thing. We have diversity of products too, as you pointed out, Pete. Latex being a good example. Latex products, those are part of the reason why latex has had a resurgence, is because we have a national brand advertising latex, and we really hadn't had that up until now. So that's helping other people can kind of draft behind that even, and that's kind of a benefit in a sense, and certainly it gives consumers more choice. So that's a positive thing. So yeah, those are some reflections on where we've come so far. I think in terms of where we're going, what was the second part of the question? It was about where we're headed. That may be surprising.
What are your biggest takeaways from the last 10 years, which you covered, and what do you feel lies ahead that might surprise some?
Yeah. I think we're at a really critical inflection point right now for the industry. I do think that the industry is under assault from the kind of low end. And I've been shouting from the rooftops about this since I think I did a presentation at the bedding conference in 2018, where I talked about the 3 existential threats facing the industry. It was ultra cheap mattresses, the large e-commerce platforms that basically drive those ultra cheap mattresses, and specifically Amazon. And then review sites was the one that really surprised people. Was a third, the vast majority of which are pay to play.
The phony review sites with the
phony review sites. What I would call the mattress review mafia.
Yes, exactly.
The extortionists who are out there just with basically it's an extortion business model is pretty much.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
and any self-respecting mobster, would be pissed off and be like, "Hey, where's my VIG on this? You're stealing my stuff." Like,
yeah,
you got to pay me. You can't just take my idea and run away with it without paying me.
So anyway, so what I've been shouting for the rooftops about these three threats. At the time, Amazon was probably selling a few hundred million in online mattresses. I believe now they're well over 2 billion, and they've probably doubled in the last 12 to 24 months. So they're the largest unit seller of mattresses in the country right now. When you consider the price points that they sell at, I put them as the largest unit seller.
Do you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I remember a younger Jeff Giannakovo screaming from the rooftops saying, and Mr. and Mrs. Retailer, if you think that Amazon is your friend, think again. Truer words have never been spoken. I
100%.
actually dubbed him the prophet of mattresses at that point. Of course.
But
Jeff,
he was way up on the roof, so he didn't even hear you do that. But yes, now he's finding out that he's the prophet.
I mean, he called it, and retailers were jumping on board, and he's like, you really don't want to do this. Like, they're gonna take all of this information, they're gonna body block you out of the way, and they're gonna do it themselves. And
I would add to that. I always, anytime I have the opportunity, I discourage any manufacturer from listing their products on Amazon. And the reason is simply that I have to back up. Before I can explain the reason for that, I have to explain why Amazon in itself is an existential threat. And essentially, it's because there are only two ways to win on Amazon: reviews and price. And I know people will say ads, but ads is not a real way to win because you're paying, so you eventually lose. But like, reviews and prices are the only ways to essentially bubble to the top on Amazon. Every mattress sold on Amazon, especially the cheap ones, gets good reviews because Amazon asks you 2 weeks after you bought the mattress, what do you think? At that point in time, all you've done is taken the mattress out of the box and gone, wow, it's really a mattress. It met all my expectations so far. 5 stars. Plus, if you bought a mattress for $300, your expectations were pretty low to begin with. You're the easiest grader on the internet at that point in time. So those mattresses have really attractive star ratings because of course they will. There's no other outcome that they could where they ever wouldn't have really good ratings. So now, if your cheapest mattresses have really good ratings, now there's really only one way to win, right? Because there's nothing that the really good mattresses or a higher quality mattress can do to beat them on ratings. So now there's only one way to win, which is price. Okay, so now you're just in a race to the bottom, right? Because now it's just the lowest price. If ratings is equal, now we just go with the lowest price. So Amazon, fundamentally, their whole platform, the way it's designed, it is inevitably a race to the bottom. I said this in 2018, like, there's no other way that this story can go other than that the only mattresses that will ultimately win on Amazon are the cheapest ones. And that is exactly what's happening. Those are the only ones that sell the massive volumes. So the reason I discourage any other manufacturer from putting their products on Amazon is because, and sometimes people think, well, I just want the exposure. I want some reviews. I want people to discover it. The reality is, if people go to Amazon and feel like it is a viable place for them a viable home base for them to conduct their mattress research, then they will be less inclined to go to other places to find information to fuel their search. And the more time they spend on Amazon and the more they're relying on that platform to make their decision, the more likely they end up at the bottom with one of those really ultra cheap mattresses. And so anytime we send someone to Amazon who feels like this is a great resource for shopping for a mattress, that's one more person who's more likely than not going to end up with one of those ultra cheap mattresses. So that's why I highly discourage. What we should have is that they go to the Amazon and they go, wow, this I'm only seeing a small fraction of the market here. I'm not really getting a representative. I got to go other places. I got to go to some stores. I got to go to hopefully a website like GoodBed and find some other information.
And I want to get to that, but Andy, you're 100%. Jeff is still a prophet. Absolutely. He's a prophet and and someone who helps you make profits. Alex Dew, what advice would you give to a first-time mattress shopper? Boy, is this a layup? Okay, we'll send you the $20. We promise you, Alex. A layup shot, Mike.
Well, I mean, the first thing that I always have to explain to any mattress shopper is that mattresses are highly personal. That's the thing that most people don't necessarily expect coming into this process. So you got to orient them that way. That's always the first place to start, because this is true even when they go to the internet too. We find this is why so many of this mattress review mafia sites have had the success they have, is that people start their search with best mattress of some variation of that, thinking that there's just an answer, that they can buy mattresses like they can buy a toaster oven, or a router. And the reality is that we all want pretty much the same thing from our toaster oven, but we don't at all want the same thing from our mattress, or need the same thing for that matter. And so mattresses are highly personal. And that's basically what the number one piece of advice that I would give to a first-time mattress shopper. And that helps point them in the right direction, because then it starts to get them thinking about, okay, so what are the things I need to be thinking about? And then I would take them through kind of what we call our 3 Fs: the fit, the feel, and the features. I mentioned, like I laid it out before, the fit are those things that are like, better or worse, but going to vary depending on your body shape or your weight or your sleep position. The feel are those things that are purely preference based. There's no better or worse at all on a universal basis. It's just better or worse for you, like the memory feel or the bounce, or even to a degree the softness of the mattress. It's just your preference. And then the features would be those things that can be better or worse, but may or may not be a big priority for you, or can be of varying priorities for you. Like I mentioned, motion isolation, but also edge support, or how natural it is, or how pressure relieving it is, and things like that.
I want to go back to something you said that was super important about not listing on Amazon. When you do that, you are legitimizing your competition, and you really don't want to do that.
Yep.
If we can get mattress shoppers over to GoodBed, they're going to learn that they need to find a store near them and go into that store and have a personalized experience where they can get the fit and the feel and the features that are important to them. And some are more important than others. And here's the thing. You lay on a really good memory foam mattress, and you lay on a really good all latex mattress. One you're going to sleep in, and the other you're going to sleep on. And which one do you like better? You can't get that on the internet. You can't. Your body has to tell you it's the right mattress. And you can't do that except in person.
Yep.
So I just had to, but I think you're right about the critical inflection point. And so here we are, Mike, we're 7 years after that. And, a lot of things have happened. Mrs. Jones, who, isn't made out of money, that lower income to lower middle income person has largely been out of the market, probably coming back into the market, and will probably need a wider variety of choices down the road in the next year or so. But she's largely been out of the market. And so things are changing. How do you see this playing out here in the next few years? Do you believe, well, for instance, we know that more consumers, this is what I would love to know. Do you have any data that backs up what we believe is happening? We believe that more consumers are interested in natural and sustainable stories. Is that, do the facts bear that out, or is that just something that we're coming up and pulling out of our hat?
We're not seeing we're seeing a little bit maybe on the margin, I'd say, but overall, I would say what we see as it relates to natural is there is a segment, and there has been even a segment who is oriented toward that being a top priority, but that segment is pretty small. I mean, it's probably still under 10%, I would say, of the market who considers this to be like a must-have, that my mattress is natural. And that may be up a little bit, maybe it was 7 and now it's 10, but it's not like that's 50%.
Got it.
There's still a big segment of the market for which natural is just not really a big consideration. It's not a top priority. They say it's not important. They tell us that, not important. It's not to mean that they wouldn't like it if they could get it, but it's not a critical thing. And then there's a big portion in the middle. And that's the really interesting piece of the market, I think, for the industry to think about, which is this group of people who says it's somewhat important. And the reason I think that group is interesting is because I draw an analogy to food. We can all imagine like when organic food started to become, something we were more conscious of. And the first thought a lot of us had was, like, okay, I get it that it's better for me, but like, does it taste good? Because if it doesn't taste good, I'm not sure how important it is to me that it's organic, and the equivalent. And I think there's still a lot of people for whom it's, let's find food that tastes good. And then the organic thing is nice to have, but I'm first and foremost looking for that food I like. And I think for the mattress category, there's an analogy to be drawn there, which is it comfortable? Right? Like that's the first thing. Is this mattress going to be comfortable? And maybe also even after that, is it going to be supportive? Am I going to wake up with back pain? Or is it like durable? That might also come. The natural thing, it might be the third or fourth thing. Okay. So again, it's not to say that it's not important to them, but in terms of how we position the stories, and also for that matter, how we design some of the products, I feel like a lot of the stuff out there that uses that it tends to be a little binary. It's like, oh, we're natural, so therefore we use latex. We don't use any foam. It's like it's wool. It's this. It's that. Everything leads with natural first and foremost. That's great for that 7 to 10%, but for that 40%, that's in that middle category, I feel like there's a possibility to design products and to tell stories in a way that maybe is more emphasizing of some of those other characteristics that may be more important to them, and still having the natural be part of the story, but not necessarily the lead headline.
Got it. So where do you see the opportunities for manufacturers and retailers in the future to capture more market share and to have happier customers? What do they need to do?
I think right now, manufacturers and retailers, the consumers are essentially having a little bit of a crisis of confidence in the category. I think that's, if I'm epitomizing the dynamic that has led to Amazon being able to grow at the rate they have, it's not to say that every consumer is experiencing a crisis of confidence in the category, but I think holistically, consumers are experiencing a crisis of confidence in the category, and that's what has caused so much attrition, so much kind of cannibalization or what have you from that low end. And I think that what retailers and manufacturers need to do is restore that confidence, and that's plays into what we are trying to do with the scientific testing program that we announced with Dow, which you may be aware of. But we announced back in October. We're just at the early stages of kind of introducing it to the market. It's the first of its kind. We've never had something like this before, an independent scientific testing program for the industry. But I think that my vision for this is it is a way for the category to restore confidence in, and for the category to demonstrate to consumers credibly that, in fact, a higher quality product is does things differently or performs differently than a lower quality product, and help people regain confidence in why they should spend $2,000 on a mattress instead of $200.
I did not know this was going on. This is awesome. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I could give you some more background. It is new, but basically, it's new in terms of the public, but it started 4 years ago, actually, when we started working on it with them. They were interested in kind of better understanding how their products ultimately get used by the consumer. And if you think about where Dow sits in the value chain, they're way upstream from the consumer. And so they thought, let's try to better understand this. They developed a studio. They hired scientists. They acquired lots of great testing equipment. They identified the mattress category as a category that uses a lot of their product and therefore would be very interesting. And they kind of were at a point where they said, we could measure anything we want about mattresses. What should we measure? And that's when they came to us and found us and said, hey, looks like you guys understand this category. You have credibility in this category. You have developed a methodology for evaluating mattresses and breaking down all the characteristics of a mattress into those discrete, objectively measurable attributes. And we'd like to kind of work with you to figure out how we can take that methodology and apply scientific testing approaches and methods to each of those attributes. And so that's what we started doing. We worked on that for 3.5 years before we felt like we finally had the battery of tests to really measure all these attributes scientifically and accurately. And so that's when we announced it. And now we're at the point where I consider this still to be like the first inning here, where we're now having the opportunity to still talk to retailers about it, understand how we can make this useful for them, talk to manufacturers, how can we make this useful for them? And just really, and of course we're hearing from consumers as well already about like how excited they are to have this kind of information. So yeah, that's a little background on it.
Yeah. One of the things that we hear routinely from customers is their frustration at unbiased information. They expect propaganda from the manufacturers who beat themselves on the chest and say, mine's the best because of this doohickey that goes that way and another doohickey that goes the other way. And that's why you should buy ours, Mrs. Jones. And quite frankly, Mrs. Jones doesn't really buy the propaganda. So this becomes extremely important, not for all of us.
Especially when every brand is pretty much making the same claims. Every product, including those $300 ones on Amazon, are saying the same thing. They're all saying cooling, pressure relieving, supportive, durable, blah, 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 blah. So she's left wondering, do they all do this? Do any of them do this? Yeah. And it's hard for the retailer too. I know from talking to retailers that one of the hardest things for a retailer is that consumer comes in, their guard is up, right, from minute one. And the challenge initially is, how do I earn this person's trust? How do I get them to on my side? How do I help them understand that I'm trying to help them, that I'm on their side? And this to me is an incredibly powerful and easy way to do that, is if you had real scientific information from an independent authority where you could say, look, you don't have to believe me. You don't even have to believe the manufacturer. Here's trusted third-party scientific data about this mattress. That makes that job, to me, infinitely easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long before we start to get some answers?
This year, for sure. And by the way, this you can, if you're listening to this, if you're a retailer, you can consider this an invitation to reach out to me, because I'd love to, at a minimum, hear your perspective on how you think you might be able to make this useful, because we're building. This is taking shape. So if you want to have your fingerprints on how this ultimately takes shape, this is a great time to be having conversations with us. No obligations or anything like that. Just help us understand how we can make this useful. And if you're a manufacturer, same thing. Reach out to us, because we're already testing products and we're already accepting, manufacturers approaching us to have their products tested. So, and we're trying to work with, if you want to be among the first ones to sort of help us figure out how to make this most useful for you, now's the time. Reach out.
Awesome. What have you learned in the last year, Mike, that really, really surprised you and or you believe would really surprise a store owner that he or she should know about his customer, his or her customer, I should say?
Gosh, that's a tough one.
That's okay.
So I'm not good at querying my brain for, like, I wish my brain was organized like a database where I could just go like, all right, filter for like surprising, filter out, last year.
Well, I guarantee your brain is more organized than my brain.
I don't know about that. But I don't know. I don't know that there's one thing that pops out to me that would be surprising for me. I guess I just look at it and I just look at the landscape, and I feel like this is a critical time for the industry, and like I said before, and for retailers. I worry that that some of the people who go down to this kind of Amazon route of buying their mattress, we may never see again in a mattress store. I think that's a possibility. And so they might have just those people might effectively give up on the higher end of this category forever. And so I don't want that to happen. I'd like to make sure that we are providing the best possible information to people to help them understand, what really distinguishes a higher quality product.
This is just based on comments that I hear from my store owners that I call on. They are increasingly getting more and more customers coming into the store and saying something along these lines. I bought a mattress on Amazon last year. Don't show me any cheap mattresses. To me,
that's encouraging.
Yes, it's very encouraging, right? Because it's almost like they don't know how good you can be unless they know how bad you can be. So we already went to the $200 foam queen on Amazon and found out that, I gave you a 5-star online review after 2 days, but within a year, I can't sleep on the darn thing. And so this is something, if you're new to the mattress industry, this will be really important for you. The old timers, like the Jeff Janakovos and the Scott Vaughns of the world, already know this, but Steve Russo, who was the president of Sutherland, sent me a really interesting article. He was a super smart guy and really was kind of became a mattress nerd. And he knew I was a mattress nerd. So he would find these articles that would never be in Furniture Today and send them to me. And I would just gobble them up and say, thanks, Steve. And so this article was done by a chemical company. And what they did is they tested polyurethane foams that are used in built-in mattresses. Mm-hmm. And they found out that when you're using 1 pound foam, it loses, let me see if I got this right. Over 40% of its ability to be comfortable and supportive within the first year. Now,
Yep.
when you go up to like 2-pound foam, that is more like 5%. And if you go above 2-pound, which hardly ever happens anymore, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6 pound foams and above, you're talking single digit 1% loss. Latex is in that 1 to 3%, depending on the quality of the latex in terms of its ability to maintain. And so that cheap piece of foam is going to lose a lot of support and a lot of comfort very, very, very quickly. And so, but to your point, Mike, and I think it's really important for us all to understand, especially us mattress nerds, your customer doesn't know this.
No.
And it's almost impossible to tell her this unless you're doing like a Jeff Giannakovo move or a Scott Vaughn move, and that is curating content for your consumers as they come in and out of the market, because it's not a straight line curve when a customer enters the market. Most customers come into the market, they put the white flag up, they go out of the market because the roof leaks, their kids need braces, something happens in life, and they bounce out of the mattress market. They come back in from start to finish. I think it's like 4 years. And it hasn't changed hardly at all in like 30, 40 years. And it's more complicated now. We're spreading price points. We're spreading technology stories, whether it's a smart bed, an adjustable bed, latex is now in the mix, memory foam, which when I started didn't even exist. You've got all of these things, and the customer needs information more than ever before. If you are a retailer who is putting good content out there on a regular basis, you have a much better shot at getting this customer to trust you. And there is this critical information that customers need and want, and this idea that you and Dow could come up with some scientific data that would help the consumer make a decision could be industry changing and life changing for customers and for dealers who embrace it. So what do we got to do to help you get there, man?
Let's just start, getting products into this program. That's the key. And then the more products we get into this program that we can get real certified test data on, the more products will be on your floor that you can show that data to consumers for. And, ideally, if I'm a retailer, I want all the products on my floor to have this information so that no matter where I point the consumer, they can feel confident that they're getting the best possible information about that product, and I can feel confident that everything I'm saying about that product is real and backed up by science.
That's great. This is super exciting, Mike. So thank you for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing this with us, because quite frankly, I'm sure it's been out there, but I just haven't seen it. Hey, Patrick,
it's new.
How are you? AKA the sales gorilla. Is that sales gorilla out of the cage yet? So Patrick has written 4 great sales books, and he has now created 600 to 800 videos on sales and sales negotiation. He's putting it in a package called Gorilla, a Sales Gorilla, and it's going to be all video content for salespeople, and it's almost done. And it's first time I've seen anyone take on a project of this kind of scope and size. So Pat, thanks for saying hi. Mike, there's somebody watching and they want to get a hold of you. Might be a manufacturer, might be a store owner. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
You could email me or my colleague, Jeff Cassidy, who many of you have probably seen on our podcast or met before. Our emails are simple. Mine's Mike at GoodBed.com and his is Jeff at GoodBed.com.
Awesome.
That's the best way to reach us.
Well, buddy, this flew by fast. I can't believe it. We're right at an hour and feels like we talked for 10 minutes.
I know.
Please hit me in the head if another year goes by. And 3 years. 3 years is too long because things move, they change, and
I know.
you guys are always doing something, and you guys have done some really great studies, and you're getting some information from your website that could be helpful to our retailers and our manufacturers both. So
100%.
let's make sure we do this again soon.
Yeah, I would look forward to that for sure. And thank you for having me back on.
No, thank you. Have a great weekend, and everybody go out there and sell a million. Thanks for being here. Take care, guys.